So that's when we Google, how do I bring my beverage to life? And I'm trying to convince my wife. So she goes, what's your plan? I said, well, I'm going to put it in a can. I'm going to sell the shit out of it. And she's like, no, Adam, what's your plan? And as a very good husband, I looked her straight in the eye and repeated exactly what I said the first time. I said, I'm going to put it in a can and I'm going to sell the shit out of it. I said, honestly, if you need more answers than that, you need to ask me better questions. So she came up with about 20, 25 questions. That became our original business plan. And we literally do the polar opposite of everything in that business plan. What we created is what I thought should have been in that can. That's it. And so then found out that didn't exist. And then it was a few month transition of, well, I've always wanted to have a business. Having it with my wife sounds fun. Let's do it.
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick, and this is your podcast for leadership, inspiration, and impact. Today will be no different. We are in the studio, my home away from home, and we got a special guest here in the studio with us. So let me give Adam a proper introduction. Adam Kroener, president and co-founder of Carbliss, to talk about leadership growth and what it takes to build a fast-growing consumer brand without losing discipline, culture, and perspective. So that's our setup for today. Adam's story runs way deeper than just beverages, though. Before Carbliss, he served in the U.S. Army as an automated logistics specialist and was deployed in Iraq. But that chapter, along with his later experience in manufacturing and sales, helped shape the way he leads, builds teams, and thinks about pressure, accountability, and execution. So Adam Kroener, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Josh. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is going to be a fun conversation. I mean, we've already had great conversation before we even got on the hot mics. So we'll continue it on. But I always want to give people a little backstory. So for those that haven't tried Carbliss, how many states are you in?
We're in 23 geographically right now.
All right, perfect. So this podcast gets out nationwide and some worldwide countries as well. So we're not everyone's probably had the opportunity yet, but we're going to get into it and hopefully they have the opportunity soon. But you served in the Army, deployed in Iraq. What I always like to ask former operators and especially our veterans, like, how did that show up in how you lead today? Like, what lessons do you kind of draw parallels from?
There's, I would say my military service was National Guard. So there wasn't a ton of parallels, I would say, except for my time in Iraq, because that was really the main full-time piece. And it really boils down to a few different things, and it's process and leadership. And you had Mike Murphy on recently as a guest, and I don't know that it was intentional because I didn't have a ton of interaction with him, but I've always focused on being a leader that is approachable, that anybody can come to. And honestly, when I listened to your podcast with him, I was like, I wonder if this is where I got that from. Because I was a E3, E4, he'd never had to know my name, but he always did, has always been approachable. You could always have a conversation with him. And I almost wonder if, almost 2 decades later, is that part of what made me want to do that? Well,
actually, as you know, as a parent, and I didn't put that in your bio, but Adam married 3 beautiful girls. Actions are caught, not taught.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. From a process perspective, between Iraq and then the military, I ended up, manufacturing. In manufacturing, I started on the factory floor, and then I ended up doing like process improvement stuff. And then I ended up leading the manufacturing, eventually having a couple manufacturing plants and over 1,000 team members that basically reported through me. And the big thing that starts with the military was the benefit of process. The thing that I also learned from the military was the detriment of way too much process. Meaning, when you've got a manufacturing operation or you're trying to scale a brand, right? You want, this is Adam's opinion, I want to have repeatability in that. And that's exactly how the military creates SOPs. I forget what they're called anymore, but they have a different name for it.
In business, they're called SOPs.
Yeah,
so yeah.
Exactly. But I'll be frank about it. I don't need to know, Mr. and Mrs. Military, that in order to wipe my ass, I need 5 sheets of 3-ply, and this is how I need to fold it, and this is the angle it. Like, that's too much process. Like, just let me wipe my ass.
Yeah.
And that's just putting a very, I think, colorful picture to it, because they standardize everything, but then it doesn't allow the human to be the best part of themselves, which is a creative human being. And so part of the way we lead is trying to create that. There is no perfect situation, but having enough process to repeat success while still allowing the human to be as creative and beneficial to the organization using, what they know and have learned over 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit earlier about my EOS implementer background. And one of the things we teach is the Pareto principle, but in the 80-20 principle, but in SOPs, right? So what are the 20% that are most crucial that yield 80% compliance? Not having an SOP on how to wipe your ass. That's getting too granular. But
in so many organizations, I felt like in my past life, there was a few times where I was almost forced to. They want to, because certain people will get so disjointed with the organization and the work that's being done to create the value, that they want to go down to error of 0, right? So then create the process better so people don't fail. I get it, but at the same time, you can do that. And then if nobody ever fails, the failure will happen. It'll just compound into a much bigger failure without micro learnings. Personal opinion on that. But
yeah, one of my good friends I had on the show a couple months ago, probably, Trace Miller, he started a healthy food franchise that he's scaling as we speak. And he brought up the McDonald's example, is that 2 of their most popular menu items came from franchisees. But the franchisees didn't, and it's the Filet-O-Fish and the Big Mac.
Okay.
But they didn't go and just start hawking those. They brought them up the chain. So they left room for them to be creative, because if they did start selling those and no other McDonald's started selling them, that would be a break of the SOP. They'd probably get their franchise taken away. But leaving that creative. So if someone has a good idea to make things more efficient or better and has a creative solution, you bring that, the approachability up the chain. And you're going to be open to that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing is I want people to get out of that is you want to be approachable. You want people to run your SOPs. But if there's a better way, don't just go and change it on the fly. Run it up the proper chain to your superior, whatever. And then if there is a better way and it can be repeatable, I'm sure they're going to listen if they're a good leader.
100%.
So the manufacturing side, I want to dig into. So you go into a W-2 role, right? Mm-hmm. What was the impetus for you to go, I want to start this entrepreneurial journey? Because that's usually not an easy transition for someone that's been military, W-2, like, okay, I want to try this out.
Yeah, I would say there was always a desire to have a business. I think back in 2012, 13, 14, somewhere in there, my dad, my brother, and I had started a business together doing hydrographics printing, which if you're not familiar, like an ATV that's got a camo print, or your dog's name is Remy, right? A Remington that's got the camouflage print is done through hydrographics. And we were always all into cars and motorcycles, so that seemed like a really good fit. It was maybe about a year, 2 years. It did not work at all. But I definitely had, I would say I'm going to call it arrogance, because I think sometimes a difference between arrogance and confidence is just actual knowledge.
Or delusional confidence.
Yeah. Okay. So I had delusional confidence, or arrogance about how to run a business. And I would also argue that my dad and my brother did too. And so like after everything was done, I don't know that I understood the things I missed, but then as I was involved in these other businesses, I started learning more about just processes and procedures that helped me understand the things I missed. Not to mention, my wife is a G in the finance world. And so that piece definitely helped, because I don't have, we don't do EOS implementation at Carbliss. Amanda worked for a company before that's done EOS. I very much know the platform. Mm-hmm. I'm the visionary. She's the implementer.
Integrator. Integrator. Often confused.
My bad.
No, it's all good.
And so that piece has always worked for us. And so when the business piece was tried a product that I thought was lackluster, tried every product I started making a product that I thought was really great. Friends and family liked it.
Do you purposely not say what the product was that you tried?
We talked about it in person. I'll do it off air. I won't do it on air.
I appreciate that. No, I was just making sure.
Yeah, not my forte. And there's a lot of them out there like it too.
Yeah.
And so once we were making this thing and everybody tells us they love it, then we tried $500 worth of product off the shelf. It was like, well, somebody should do this. Maybe we should do this. And I'd say the funny part is when I asked my wife, so I literally Googled, how do I bring my beverage to life? So I'm making this, it's 5%.
And this is before AI, right?
Oh, yes,
So
but we had Google. I'm not that old. And so we Googled, how do we bring our beverage to life? So I was making a vodka lemonade, and now it's 5% in Carbliss, but it was probably 14%, right? And so I'm taking apart all the ingredients and trying to figure out, how do I put it into a scalable batch? So that's when we Google, how do I bring my beverage to life? Found a place that needed $2,500 down payment. And I'm trying to convince my wife. So she goes, what's your plan? I said, well, I'm going to put it in a can. I'm going to sell the shit out of it. And she's like, no, Adam, what's your plan? And as a very good husband, I looked her straight in the eye and repeated exactly what I said the first time. I said, I'm going to put it in a can and I'm going to sell the shit out of it. And I said, honestly, if you need more answers than that, you need to ask me better questions. So she came up with about 25 questions. That became our original business plan. And we literally do the polar opposite of everything in that business plan now. But it was really the gap of try the product that when I tried it, what we created is what I thought should have been in that can. That's it. And so then created something, found out that didn't exist. And then it was a few month transition of, well, I've always wanted to have a business. Having it with my wife sounds fun. Let's do it. And, I mean, it's funny because we tried our first product that we didn't like in May of 2018, the end of it. And then we launched in September of 2019.
So move fast.
Right. And so we didn't actually sign the document to start formulating recipes until August. So took about 13 months to actually go from concept to live business. The funny part now is when we developed new flavors, it still takes us 6 or 7 months just because of all the processes in between.
Yeah,
so like
market testing, stuff of that nature.
Moving fast is an understatement. I just didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah. Well, what's awesome I want everybody to grasp is he truly described the visionary and integrator paradigm because you're like, let's just go. I'm going to sell the shit out of it. That's a true visionary. That's me. I'm a 98% visionary. And then Alicia on my right hand is the integrator. And she, anytime I toss her 20 ideas, she's going to go, these 2 are good. These 16 are shit. And these 2 are good, but not now. Right. And your wife did that exact same thing for you. Came up with those 20, 25 questions to help you think through more of a strategy and a business plan and all that stuff. And that's why having those 2 in sync is rocket fuel for any business.
Yeah. And going back to the implementer, which I did screw that up earlier. Our implementer ended up being our second person that we hired and had really good experience in Bev Elk that we did not have. That's part of the reason why our business plan, we now do the opposite. Yeah. There's so many laws and regulations that we had no idea what we were getting into.
Yeah. What was it about the products that you tried that you didn't like that you recreated, or not recreated, but created for Carbliss?
So Carbliss, if you haven't tried it, the best way to explain it is it's a cocktail in a can. So pineapple, peach, lemon, lime, just naming some flavors. I'm going to explain a compliment that we often get. Adam, that tastes exactly like the name that's on the can. It tastes like you're eating pineapple and the juice is dripping down your throat. Tastes like you're eating peach and the juice is dripping down your throat. Like I just bit into the fruit. The fact that that is a compliment is kind of amazing. It should be table stakes to be at the table, right? And so it was really just the creation of, when I looked at the first can that I ever tried, it had a flavor on it. Let's say it was lime. It should have tasted like lime, but instead what I got was a ton of carbonation, and where the hell is the lime? So all I wanted to create was, if it says lime, it should taste like lime. Mm-hmm. That's it. I see it as very simplistic, but... So
you tried these recipes in your kitchen. you knew what you wanted to create. What's the first step in getting it to market, to manufacturing to market, to get someone that believed in your vision and go from there? Because I know you do, or we'll talk about the co-packing and how you went down that strategy, but like, what's that next step that people need to hear from?
Well, so I think the hard part is what I'll call a scalable batch. And that was the thing I knew I needed. So because I was in co-packing, I knew that whatever I'm making with my 3 or 4 ingredients is not how somebody who's putting it together for the masses is going to do it. And it was just, that's all the knowledge I had. So that's why we Googled it. And the best way to describe it is, let's say after this, you decide to make me dinner. That'd be great, by the way, if you're thinking about it.
I already told you I'd get up to the Dells and go see my girls dance.
So let's say you make steak, potatoes, and asparagus. Okay. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Josh, this is absolutely amazing. Now, we talked about military. Let's go feed a brigade or battalion, whatever. Mm-hmm. We got 1,000 people to feed, and I want all of their plates to taste exactly like the one you just made me. Simple in concept, but in execution, what are the things we need to consider? Well, what grade beef did you get? Where did you buy it? And is the grade variable by where you buy it? What seasonings did you use? Were they coarse? Were they fine? Where are the seasonings sourced from? And do they have different flavors? If you used any water, was it... Do you get where I'm going?
Same
right?
Sources. Yep.
And exactly. So many of the challenges that I envisioned this, so it was $2,500 that we put in as a down payment to have these formulas created. I envisioned some Beverage CSI Miami bullshit where they, dump my product. I told them exactly what I was using, and you can Google all the ingredients in there. I envisioned they'd put it into a beaker, and then, things would pop up and be like, well, it's 2 pounds of this and 10 pounds of this. And no, not at all. They're playing a bit of trial just as much as we are. So it took literally from August until January 2nd of 2019, when I flew down to California because I was sick of getting ones I didn't like back. But I also, as a non-beverage person, didn't know how to describe what I was tasting. So a lot of that was super challenging, but it was also, I reflected a lot and knew enough that I didn't know what I was asking for, but I was asking experts. So I had to figure out what I didn't know. Yeah. That was a hell of an uncovering.
Yeah, I almost imagine the master distillers at a bourbon, place, and they, before it even goes to age, they can taste it and know the proof it's going to be just based on the clear liquor that comes out. Yeah. And it's like, that is such wisdom that's years beyond just me, that's the consumer of that product.
If a quick example, so lemon lime originally was meant to be, I don't know how much Googling you've looked at the business, but the business name is actually under a company called SN Food and Beverage. SNF stands for Stefan Nicholas Fiedler, my best friend that passed away in 2016. So it was my way of honoring him. His favorite drink outside of a Jameson and sour was what do you call it now? A vodka press. So it was vodka, half soda water, and then half Sprite. Yep. So, and then lemon lime squeezed and pinched in there. So that's lemon lime originally was meant to mimic that. And this is the example of talking to the beverage experts. Guys, I think it needs more lime. They put more lime in it. And then I was like, oh, that's horrible. That's not it. And then I kind of took a step back and I said, what? I now get that's more lime, but what I was looking for is when I drink something that has the right amount of lemon and lime, there's a sour pinch in the back of my jowls. And they said, oh, Adam, well, in all, fruits, there's something called citric acid that's naturally occurring. We can actually add just more citric acid and you'll get exactly that. Boom, done. Literally, they went back to the original formula, just added citric acid, and then it was done. We had been emailing for 6 months. That was the first interaction of doing it in person. And it was like, wow, this is why in person works a heck of a lot better. But that's what I mean by just give me more limey taste. That was the extent of my super scientific version.
Well, I'm sure your palate and explanations of your palate have changed since then. But so then now you get it ready to go to market. What excitement versus what apprehension did you and your wife have at that time frame?
We've been asked that question quite a bit. I will tell you that neither of us really ever had apprehension. And it was, although visionary is the role, I would call it a methodical. For me, it's always been methodical. So like the first vision is get the fucking thing on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, do I want to be at this point the, best-selling RTD in the nation, the world, the best-selling spirit? Sure. But it doesn't start that way. And nor do I think I'd get there if I started with that grand of a vision. So from an apprehension perspective, we had a lot of pitfalls the first 2 years. There was a podcast called How I Built This that...
Yeah, Guy Raz.
Yeah. Honestly, without that podcast, I don't know that I'd be sitting here. Because the amount of times where I was like, the world is telling me to fucking stop. Mm-hmm. Then I'd listen to one of those episodes. I worked in Beaver Dam for a while. So same 1 hour drive, perfect in time for How I Built This podcast on the way there and on the way back. And every single time I was in the shit, there was another story of a founder who seems like they have all the greatest things in the world now, but you hear the story of how much it sucked. And so, it wasn't always easy, but neither of us ever debated giving up. It was there was no apprehension. It was just, this is the next logical step of what we need to do. Sometime there's a gate in the way. I just need to figure out, am I hopping or am I jumping over this? And then what does the next obstacle look like? Because it's not if, it's when.
Did you guys go all feet in, or did one of you work in that time frame?
Yeah, so great question. We launched the business with, I think, right around $80,000 of our own money. We had a few rentals that we sold. We both made a pretty good living. So 2019 is when we launched the product in September. I worked full time until May of 2021. Amanda did not come into the business full time until January of 2025.
Okay.
She tried doing part time in 22, but she's been a pretty high level person for a while, and she came in part time and, for lack of better words, was kind of doing bitch work. So, she ended up going back into corporate world until we had more high level strategy stuff for her to do.
Well, that's awesome. I like asking that question because there's a lot of businesses, there's certain businesses where you can jump all in, but you got to have that either financial backing or just sheer grit where you're going to back down all your expenses possible to go in on your dream. And then there's a lot of them that start with as a side hustle with this dream, and you do it smart, where the side hustle becomes the main hustle as you get it off the ground running.
Well, and if I go back to that business plan I was telling you about, like our distributors in this state, we have 2 distributors. We have liquor distribution, Badger and Frank Liquor, and they have collectively probably 350 salespeople. So part of our first business plan was, asset light. We've got co-manufacturers. I don't ever need to have a salesperson because my distributors have 350 people of them in this state alone. So like in our head, in the grand plan, why wouldn't you be able to, subsidize your personal P&L while you're losing money in a business? Because there's not much work that needs to be done. Yeah. Was the ignorant look at it. And
naive.
Yeah, 100%.
How many employees do you have now?
It changes every week. I want to say the last number was 107.
Awesome. So growing rapidly, which begs the question, what have you had to really internalize or change about your leadership, or maybe your biggest learning lesson as a leader growing from 1 employee to 107?
This is where I benefited greatly of being in charge of what I was in charge of before. So before I was 30, I was responsible for a P&L that was close to about $750 million. The job required a degree. I didn't have one of those. So if I go back, though, when I first got my first leadership position, I went to the military. Okay, now take Mike out of it. My only other experience really was basic and AIT. So what do they teach you in the military? You want somebody to do something? You fucking yell. They don't do it, you yell louder. That's how I started my leadership journey at the age of 21. I got a production lead job. When somebody didn't do something, I fucking yelled. And I was a really good worker. So I don't understand how the fuck you can't do that. Let me show you how to do it. This is how you do it. That was me, 100%. Until 2014, when I read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Yeah. And I read the book, and I don't remember why it was suggested. I want to say it was a CEO that I knew that brought it up, and he kept like quoting it. And so I just read it, and I remember getting like 6 chapters in, and I'm like, this is fucking fluff. This is bullshit. But I decided,
literally one of the most read books of all time.
Yeah. Oh, and now I've personally read it like 30 times now. No joke. And I kept reading it, thinking it was kind of hokey, but then I'm like, I'm just going to try to apply one of these principles. And holy crap. Like it was immediate in the way of like, so the first principle of Dale Carnegie is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Said another way is seek to understand.
Yeah.
And it is amazing the things that you can learn when you, going back to your two truths thing, when you don't pigeonhole yourself to an opinion and you just are genuinely curious. And like the fact that I was reading the book and it started working was great. Then in 2017, I was in charge of, again, like I said, close to 1,000 people. I thought our base level manufacturing leadership needed help. So I brought in Dale Carnegie leadership training and trained about 120 people plus managers. Year 1, year 2, we did it with like another 80 people, which was about 20% of the organization. And I lived it, ate it, breathed it, meaning we had 3 shifts and I was asking them all to come in 4 hours before or after their shift. So I stayed for 12 hours. I did the same class 3 times for 8 weeks.
So you're teaching it, which ingrained the learning even more.
100%.
Yeah.
And the guy, he still operates the one out of Milwaukee, very good friend of mine. I send all my Carbliss people through Dale Carnegie training to this day. And he became a mentor. I ended up becoming a trainer at some point. I never physically trained because that was right around the time that Carbliss started. We're like, oh, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And so the journey couldn't have happened at a better time because, so from a leadership perspective, that was my journey. And then I've also focused very much on just, again, understanding. I like to not have an opinion because it doesn't nail me down to anything, which is why I really liked your Two Truths episode. And then on the other side, I worked for a family organization that was pretty decently over $1 billion in revenue. That was family built for the last 30, 40 years. I quit there and went to work for a place in Beaver Dam for about 2 years. It had been ran private equity for 30 years. It had been recently repurchased private, except for it still ran like private equity. So I went from being high on the hog and not realizing it and thinking like I took this job for a lot more money and all this stuff. Within 3 weeks, I'm sitting down and I'm, P&L's like 250 million that I got to manage. And my maintenance budget's probably 2-3 million a month. And I kid you not, I'm sitting down with the CEO and I'm like, yep. And we were $2,000 over budget on our maintenance, which I did not do. My predecessor did, right? It was 0.1%. And he goes, where's the $2,000, Adam? And I'm like, I don't know. It's $2,000 out of 2 million. Like, that's not going to be my focus point. And he's like, you need to know. I was like, what? We went down this conversation for about 10 minutes. And that happened on every line item. If I was up, I needed to know why I was up. If I was down, I needed to know why I was down. And I was not used to that. At the same time, I found out that I was the 9th plant manager in 7 years. All of them had been fired. So I was like, well, if I want to keep this job, I better figure it the fuck out.
Yeah.
That helped me become financially very understanding of a business. All of those things combined with a wife that was a finance and accounting master. By the time we started scaling Carbliss, the financial piece was great. From a leadership perspective, I will tell you that my optic that I challenge myself with that I'm scared of is when we did our first year in revenue, it was $80,000, right? We're well into 9 figures at this point. That leadership style has to change. It continues to change and evolve. I've always tried to build the business that I don't need to be a part of it. If I get hit by a bus, it doesn't matter. But at what point does the skill sets of the startup that got us to this point, like it is a completely different new skill that I don't know what I don't know. Yeah. And that's what I'm fearful of. Modelo and Corona in our, they might have came to the US with 5 million cases in sales. Now they're selling 150 million cases.
Yeah.
The skill set of 1 to 5 million is vastly different than 5 to 50 or 50 to 150. Yeah. And I'm always trying to learn, but I also think everybody should have the opportunity to try Carbliss. And if I fail to lead, they won't be able to try it. And so that's something I'm always thinking about.
No, that's really good. Yeah, those financials really helped you out. As much as that was probably a challenging conversation that you had that first meeting as a plant manager, I got taught by one of my longtime coach and mentor as I was taking over and I bought out my father. He goes, Josh, you have 4 responsibilities. I go, I'm all ears. Tell me. And he goes, recruit the best people. I've been doing that. I can do that. Develop them endlessly. It's number 2. Good at that, doing that. Build an amazing culture. Okay. I have been doing that, but I know that it's going to evolve and continue to grow, and I got to continue to grow with that. Number 4, run really strong financials. And and anyone that comes in your office that asks you something that doesn't pertain to those 4, anyone that comes in your office and tries to throw their monkey on your back, you look at that note. And I did. I kept it on my computer screen.
I like that.
And those were my 4 responsibilities as the leader of the firm. And I had 250 people at the time, or we grew it to 250. But it was a really powerful lesson. And it was interesting as I started coaching more entrepreneurs, doing EOS, all the different things. I was like, those 4 things weren't exclusive to the financial industry.
No.
They're pretty mutually exclusive mutual to all entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Do you have, within that business or now, did you have anyone to help you protect that?
Yeah. So strong leadership around me, and it's never going to be perfect. There's still going to be, and I was I had 115 advisors that are pretty visionary minded like me, squirrel, Josh's door's open, that's going to happen. That being said, I hired Alicia. I want to say it was during COVID. She was trapped in New York City. I had read Traction in 2019, Rocket Fuel shortly thereafter, so it might have been early 2020. I was like, I need an integrator. I was like, everyone at my leadership table thinks like me. And, good and bad. But what was happening, this is very as clear as day, I'll never forget it. The first leadership meeting she was in, it took us about 6 months of interviewing each other. She's like, great discussion, guys. What's the solution? I go, oh shit, this is different. I was like, we'd have great discussions, but we were all thinking alike and we were discussing symptoms of the problem. We were discussing, and then we get on a squirrel tangent.
Talking about all your great ideas.
Yeah, all the great ideas. That's right. There's lots of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's the solution? What's the point? Like, who's doing what? Who's going to own it? All those things that we were missing from the room. That was a big change. So having someone like her, my COO was great. And what's interesting? I had mostly a female leadership team. And it was just interesting. They protected me well. They gave me the pulse of the organization. And my CFO is female, integrator female, COO female. And not saying that that's what people need to do, but for me, it was because all my other leaders were in the advisory space were male. And it was just interesting to have that dichotomy and really having people around me that you trust and never trying to be the smartest person in the room.
Right.
Like I want to hire people that are way smarter than me and me be really good at what I'm good at and mediocre at the rest of it where they're great at.
Yeah. I am blessed that I married the woman I did. I catch her more often than not because I'm still like, I want to be helpful and I am genuinely curious. So like Amanda becomes really good at like, why the hell are you bothering Adam with that? In just very simplistic terms. Now, if I say, why the hell are you bothering me with it? It seems quite arrogant, but for her to be like, why? Right. And sometimes it might just be somebody wanted to talk to, and that's fine. Let's chat. But she helps, I think, keep me in light of that, just by hearing her external perspective. And similarly, and you actually, again, brought this up on that pod. I have more women than men on my leadership team. And I think as an organization, we're probably about 60 female, 40 male. But I've noticed this interesting piece where then on the protection side, Amanda generally knows when to bring me in, right? Like, okay, now this is a hot button. We need to get it solved. Mm-hmm. Bring them in. The other females will sometimes protect me, sometimes to my detriment. Mm. And you were talking, and I don't think they're not trying to dilute for me.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case, but they're trying to ensure that when they bring me in, they're not wasting my time. And sometimes I think that's detrimental for them because they might deal with more shit than they have to. Because it's like, well, if you would have told me about this a couple weeks earlier, we probably could have prevented it. But that might just be a continual learning curve for all of us and how we work together.
Yeah. One of the things my dad taught me was he always said this. He was like, I don't need to do everything, but I do need to know everything as the leader. Right. So, in the L10s, the agenda that EOS runs, so the issues list or the headlines, like what are the headlines from the leadership table that we should all know as leaders, right? Like what would be front page news? Like this employee had this incident go on. Hey, so-and-so's spouse is dealing with cancer. We had this customer, huge win, new customer. Like what's front page news that everyone at the leadership table should be privy to? That's kind of how I take that section, how I teach that section to my clients is the leaders need to know what's going on because like, let's say that employee whose spouse is dealing with cancer, they screw something up. You lash out on them, not knowing that other thing going on in their life.
Right.
It's a huge thing. Like we're going to operate differently if we have knowledge. And so that was a good lesson that I've always remembered from my dad is, hey, I'm not the solution master.
Right.
Although I am good at a lot of solutions. I'm not, but because other people, I'm going to count on other people to own their genius, but I do need to know everything that's going on.
Right.
So
yeah, I like that.
Perhaps that could be good for the team. Where do I want to go with that? So I'm thinking through your evolution next and thinking through, like you were talking about, you've scaled to multi-9 figures and you're playing with the big boys now.
Yep.
And I guess, what's that like to go from this no brand, like no one knew who you are, now you're on the radar and there's probably big boys paying attention to you or at least cognizant of your penetration into the marketplace.
There's a decently sized one that just popped off. He doesn't like to be called a copycat, but it's a very similar brand name and likeness. So it's there. But I think part of our methodology, which quite frankly we stole from Craig Culver, was backyard to backyard. And when you think about, you got a ton of trees out on your property here. If you're running around with a lawnmower and, hey, Remy.
Sit down, Remy.
Hey, Remy.
Lay down.
If you're running around with a lawnmower and you just planted a bunch of trees, you nick a sapling, what happens? Sapling probably dies. Think about that like a P&L, right? If your P&L is thin and then somebody bumps it, you're screwed. Company's done. If you can create let's say the tree's 2 or 3 years old, now it's about that thick, and then you hit it with, it's going to hurt it. It's going to take some time to heal, and it might even actually have a scar as it gets bigger, but it's going to keep getting bigger. Or if it's about this big and then it nicks it, it's probably just going to heal and it's never going to have a scar and then it'll keep getting bigger. That was really the concept of how we built the business. So yeah, geographically, we're in 23 states. If you look at the data, we're the fourth largest in the nation by dollars. And everybody else, the 3 above us and 20 below us are all national brands. But we've created such a solid business in a small geography that when the big people try to come in, it's going to hurt. We're going to get nicked, but we're not going to die. And we also have all of this white space of 27 states that can help pad the P&L if we get nicked in our current geography.
Yeah, no, that's really good. The other piece of that question then is, I'm sure there's been offers.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny. There's 2 things. There's all these like, oh, once you hit 100 million in retail revenue, that's when everybody starts coming out. I didn't realize this till probably about 4 years ago. But in business, most people, I'm going to use a house. Okay. You can list it for sale by owner. If you want to sell it and you want to sell it. And anybody could walk up to you and be like, Josh, this house is beautiful. Could I buy it? That happens to people. Mm-hmm. Same thing in business. It happens to people. It's very fucking rare. But if I want to sell it, what's the best way with a house? Well, you get with a realtor who has, they focus on selling houses and it goes on all the right websites, right? And they take all the right pictures. Same things in business. There are business brokers.
Yeah.
So I've had conversations with 5 or 10 that were interested. The cool part is the data that you can see for our product is only the sales across what we call off-premise. So your Festival Foods, your Costco's, your Walmart's, scan data.
Yep.
You can buy that, right? About half of our business is done in bars and restaurants. So it is the most fun part of my conversation when these, I'll go Miller, Diageo, Pernod, Anheuser-Busch. There's probably 15 globally that could, buy us up no problem tomorrow. But if you're within $1 billion, $2 billion of a revenue company, buying us would be relatively challenging. But generally they jump on a call and I know what data they're looking at. And we do the 5-10 minutes of niceties. And then usually after about 10 minutes, Adam, do you know why we're talking? Well, I have a guess. Yes. And then I said, just out of curiosity, what data are you looking at and what's created the valuation that brought you to bringing onto the call? And they say, well, the only thing we don't know is how much do you sell in bars and restaurants and how much is that? What percentage of your business? And that's really fun part for me. I said, well, go ahead and guess. And then usually the number is between 5 and 12%. And then I tell them it's 50%. And now they've realized that their calculations are completely jacked up.
And they got to go back to the drawing board.
Well, it's usually pen put down and we can't afford you. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
So it's at the end of the day, I'm having a ton of fun. We're loving it. But I am very cognizant of the thing I was talking about earlier when I believe everybody deserves to try Carbliss because I think most of the nation is going to enjoy it and they're going to like it better than their current beverage alcohol offering. And if I fail to lead it correctly, I am not allowing the consumer that option. So it's really, I could be having fun for another 10 or 15 years, but if I'm now detrimenting the growth of the brand because of my pride and belief that I need to run it, then that's an issue. So trying to figure out the in-between.
Well, it's a great perspective. I also wanted to touch on, you and Amanda run this together.
Yep.
I could never be in business with my spouse, but I have clients and great friends that do it. What's been you guys' biggest challenges separating home life and work life?
First off, I need to make a plug right now. We developed a podcast called Building Blissfully, which is all about, we sit down and interview other couplepreneurs who are doing it together.
That's awesome. That was not on my notes, Alec.
to literally pull that out because I often am mentoring other startups. Amanda spends a lot of her time working with nonprofits, but the biggest questions we get on our socials is exactly that. And I will boil it down to, we all learn and strive to learn as leaders and blah, 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 when we're getting paid W-2 or if you're running a business. But do we ever really try to be a better husband, wife after we land them? And I'd argue that most of us don't.
Well, I think regardless if you're in business or not, there's a big premise in my book. Like one of the things that Jenna and I have done well, I know we've done things not so well and things well. One of the things that we've done well is we continue to pursue each other like we were dating. We continue to love each other like I was pursuing her before we got married. And that's where a lot of people get off track. They let the kids run their life.
Yep.
And they fall out. They say they fall out of love. Well, how do you do that? You stop paying attention. You stop pursuing.
You stop fucking trying.
You stop trying. That's right.
Yeah. And so here's the beautiful part to just wrap it up. In our label, if you've ever looked at the Carbliss label, I learned Photoshop in high school, and around 2018, apps became a thing, and you didn't have to pay $1,000 for Photoshop. You could get it for $10 a month. I was trying to sell a car, so I got Photoshop to edit pictures of my car. A month later, we start this journey. So the label was designed by me, except for Amanda's the one with the design eye. Okay. The label is literally the definition of a marriage in the proverbial term, or the, I guess, jokingly term. She'd tell me what she wanted. I'd put it on paper. She'd tell me what she hated. I'd adjust it. She'd tell me what she hated about that. I'd adjust it. And then we ended up with our label about 7 iterations later. Within that, it used to piss me off because she'd tell me what she wanted. And in my opinion, I gave her gold. I did exactly what she asked me to do. Not realizing that I probably didn't ask enough questions. She maybe wasn't totally verbalizing her vision, right? And then she'd ask me to correct it. I just created this for you. And it's like, I just gave you the best thing ever. And I'd be so pissed. That simple exercise of how we created the label has become our biggest strength, but we've learned to just embrace it. So when I create, I don't expect revision 1 to be good. I'm expecting 10 revisions, maybe 20. So when we end on 3, I'm pretty freaking happy. And it's just, instead of arguing because I think the other person's trying to dig at me, it was just this understanding that even though it's not somebody in my business in the other sense, this is my wife. She's not trying to pick at me. She has a skill set. I have a separate, completely different skill set. And it's literally just appreciating that. And she always jokes, and this plays into the visionary thing, but it's like, I see our life 3 to 5 years ahead of the curve. I've been bugging her about homeschooling for 4 or 5 years. We just started doing it last year. There's many things that we do that I have to seed her for about 2 or 3 years. I used to get pissed off and frustrated when she didn't do it after month 1. As soon as we realized part of this, there was a time where I was like, well, she's realized it. Maybe she'll catch on sooner. Well, then I still ended up frustrated because she didn't catch on sooner. But it's part of just understanding that it is what it is in the dichotomy of our relationship, and knowing it and not creating an expectation for the two of us as a married couple or business partners that can't be met.
You know what that just made me think of was, we do assessments in our business world or leadership teams, whether it's Colby or Culture Index or DISC profiles or whatever. Like, why wouldn't you do one as a couple? Like this, for example, like if your wife, perhaps just based on how you describe her, is a high fact finder and you're a low fact finder, but you're a high quick start and she's a low quick start, like that's indicative of a visionary, right? So you just go all gas, no brakes. She needs to know, say, maybe 90% of the information before she goes, right? So if we just knew that about each other, you'd approach the conversation in a different way versus expecting them to act like we act.
So the brief time that I left the cheese factory in 2014, which is how Amanda and I met, she hired me in a outside sales role. I had to do a disc for that. And I was high D, high I, and I'm pretty sure she's high S, high C. Yeah. And there's a point that I wanted to make as you were mentioning that. Shoot. You
left the cheese factory, did the disc.
No, it was something about what you said, and I was trying to use that to correlate it. But about just the different personalities. Yeah. The cool thing is, again, going back 7 years ago, 2019, when it all started, I would get frustrated, and I would continue to get frustrated, and she would get frustrated with me. This isn't just, it went both ways. But the cool part is, because I am an eternal optimist, knowing her viewpoint and now respecting it has actually gotten me to fine tune my optimism. Meaning, if I'm going to her with something that I want her to move quickly on, 8 years ago, it was, I'm going to sell the shit out of it. Now, if I were to present the same thing, there's a whole bunch of information that I'm going to provide her to hopefully move her comfort level along quicker. And again, if I went back 7 years ago, I might not have done it out of spite, where like, how dare you need to question me on that? Where now it's like just a respect from understanding. And quite frankly, the amount of time she's uncovered shit that I didn't see just by asking some really simple diligence questions, I definitely saw the value. And now I just do that work on my own before I bring it to her.
Yeah. It's such good learning lessons, whether it's a leadership team, an employee, or your spouse.
Yeah.
And then it furthers down to the kids.
Yes.
It's like, I don't come at each kid the same way. All 4 of them have different personalities. They're going to react different ways. And it's understanding that and seeking to understand how and screwing up.
Yeah.
Knowing, okay, that didn't work. Got to approach that a different way.
Yeah. Probably more often than not screwing up with parenting for sure. Yeah.
Oh, yes. So many times. And that's the beauty of it. But as long as you continue to love and try and get better, that's the best. That's why, I wrote about in my book some of the trials I had with my father, but like the 11 years I spent at work with him, I saw the best of him. And so I was very complimentary of that as well. And like, we're a lot alike, and at the same time don't see eye to eye. And it's crazy how much we're alike and then can butt heads in very, very weird ways.
Yeah. I mean, if you're button heads on, you're a lot similar. It might be seeing what I've heard some stat on, like the things we don't want to see in ourselves, we see in others or something like that. So, if they're being too bullheaded and then you call it take offense to it, there's a really good chance that it's you're usually being too bullheaded, and now you're seeing that trait in him.
You're projecting, or they're showing you the mirror of yourself. Yeah. They're switching gears quick. I want to talk about culture. It's a big thing for me in all the businesses that I've run. As I said, my coach and mentor told me it was point number 3 I got to pay attention to. What's the culture you try to embody and breed up in Carbliss?
I'm just going to tell you the people that we hire. So there's a book called The Ideal Team Player that I had the benefit of reading in 2020 when I was at the pizza plant. And I was able to start hiring people with that. And that has been the entire framework. So there isn't, if we talk about that process piece, I'm going to believe in people, and I'm going to believe people can make mistakes. And if I hire the right character, I can correct the behavior. If I hire a shit character, I'm never going to be able to correct the behavior. So everything we do is focused on finding those correct character traits to hire. We're not 100%.
No one is.
I mean, we've done a pretty good job. We've let, I think, one person has quit. They quit within 90 days of starting. And we've let 4 or 5, maybe 6 people go, and we have 107. But it's very much this, everybody's learning. We give sometimes too many chances, but I'm also a big believer that if I've already invested this much, I'm more in it for finding the person who I can take the chance on. Financially might not be as lucrative, but I think it's a better human thing to do.
Mm. Yeah, there is a difference in capitalism and ethical capitalism.
100%.
Similar to, I had a buddy up from St. Louis who started his career in InBev, or AB, now InBev. I joked, like, you have to, if you're from St. Louis, you basically have to work at AB at some point in your life. and now he's an entrepreneur and he's doing great things on AI. But like he was talking about, like, you get AI, it's a tool. So you get AI in the hands of a good person, it's going to magnify their goodness. You get AI in the hands of an evil person, it's going to magnify their evil.
100%.
And it's a tool. So this is a good point. How do you, I want to talk about standards, like the high level of standard that you've had for yourself, and how do you transpose that to employees through this culture lens?
That's the hardest part.
Oh, I know. That's why I was, we got to get some insight out of your brain.
I hold myself to a standard of, if it comes out of my fucking mouth and I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So I think what I've learned to do is try to challenge people to really understand the things that come out, because the biggest thing that'll set me off, if I'm going to get pissed off, because I can be high strung in a passionate way, but I've learned that stress is all internal and it's a created situation mentally. So I don't really get stressed, but the thing that'll make my ears red is somebody lying straight to my face. And a lot of, I view I'm going to do this in 3 years. Well, if you verbalize it and you put it out in the world and you don't do it, you just, not only did you lie to me, you fucking lied to yourself. Mm-hmm. And that shit drives me nuts. So what I've learned to do is more, when people are committing to me, I actually work with them generally to soften it or ensure that they are committed to the circumstance and all of the inputs that go into it. And I know that people do struggle with it, but I do come at it from a sense of like caring and understanding, knowing that, like, if it's a team member and you commit to me, you're going to do something and you don't, you've basically broken my trust. That is a piece that I haven't been able to mentally turn off. And I think, as succinctly as I just put it here, I don't think it's fair to have that conversation with a team member, because I think it's very blunt and very raw. And 99% of people don't operate that black and white. I allow a ton of gray, but that black and white piece, I can't. Anybody who I've kicked out of my life has been a 2 or 3 repeat offender on that side.
What about if the effort was there and the target was wrong?
So everything, I'm always going to focus on, what were the targets? Why were those the targets? On, if there's 5 whys, what were the assumptions into the whys? And where did you fail on the assumptions? And so it's generally trying to understand the framework of the decision making that created the ultimate decision so that we can focus on all of those. Because I think there are things that everybody thinks about, but they never actually put on paper. Well, I thought we'd sell 10 cases. Well, why? Well, we would do 5 of these, 4 of these, and 1 of these. Okay, why did you think that? And it's digging deeper. And then what created those assumptions? And if you thought it was going to grow, was it for shits and giggles? Did you have some mathematical equation you put to it? If so, why? Was this geographical? And so it's really always focusing on, you gave me one output. I'm trying to understand the 100 inputs that went into your decision making. The challenge being most people don't think that granularly. And so I have to really be patient and peel apart that onion. On the other side, I allow myself to fail, and I allow everybody else on my team to fail, as long as you are open to the idea. It's when you get so succinctly committed to being able to do something, and then you tell me boldly that you can do it, and then you don't. But okay. I will work to retract you from that commitment, because the failure to hit the commitment is what will set me off immediately. Got it.
Yeah, because that matters. Because the same thing with our kids, right? I don't expect straight A's.
Yep.
But I do expect effort. You're trying your best.
Yeah. No, and the trying that's quite frankly, if I didn't think they were trying, they wouldn't be on the team. And so I said another way, one of the leadership philosophies that I've grown to just accept is nobody wakes up to suck. Even in a 5,000 person organization, right? Number 5,000, if you were to rank all of them in skill set and ability, number 5,000 walks into work thinking they're the best fucking worker ever. Right? And so what is it that failed in between? Is it my expectation? Is it I hired the wrong person? But if I hired the wrong person, now I have fucking ownership in that. Yeah. Right? And so it's really just trying to be an eternal understanding person.
And remaining curious, it seems like.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pointless not to.
It's the whole thing, what people ask me, what makes you good on a podcast? I'm genuinely curious. I don't think I know everything. I love having this type of conversation.
Agreed.
Because I just want to continue to ask and learn and see different perspectives.
So I want to share something that I won't say it bothers me publicly, not privately. Social media can be a great way to learn about people that you don't know, and it can be, a crappy thing for people to share their opinions that probably don't need to be shared. But a hot topic, you're talking again about the truth thing. I'm going to use not being able to have kids. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I had a kid when I was 18. So I made a lot of jokes about being more fertile than I wanted to be. Right. And I had done a ton of drugs, so I didn't think I should have been. Doesn't matter. A hot topic now is, how dare you ask me about not having, let's say we sat down, right? And you find out I have kids, and I'm like, well, do you have kids? And maybe you haven't been able to have kids. Yeah. And the response has become, how dare you ask me about that? And what I can't fathom is, do we really live in a world where we can't be genuinely curious? If I'm really trying to learn and get to know you, it's just a simple question of, hey, do you have kids? And if the answer is no, and I've tried and I can't, okay, I'm probably going to stop.
Yeah.
But it's I feel like there's a part of the nation that wants to just stop the conversation because they don't have the confidence to deliver on what they don't like about the message. It's that shouldn't stop conversation.
Correct. And that's, you take that into any sphere that's controversial, politically, 100%. Whatever. It's crazy. So, you're absolutely right. And Jenna and I, we're able to have kids. I always joke, I look at her and she's pregnant, but, we had lots of friends that struggle.
I don't have that skill set.
I don't either. I'm taking that to the extreme, but, we have lots of friends that struggle. And because of what you just said, we honestly at times felt bad about the ability to have kids. And it's just, we should never feel bad about that.
No.
We should feel blessed about that. But, everyone's got their own journey and experience. And it's, we were talking about Andy. Andy and Emily weren't able to have kids. And but now he sees all his employees as his responsibility and kids. And it's allowed him to do different things and work at a pace that basically none of us can work at because we have family responsibilities. I'll at least speak for myself as like, I'm not staying up till 2 a.m. knowing that I got to get my kids up for school and be there and be present for them when I get back from work and stuff of that nature, or me leaving early today to go up and watch them in the Dells. Like, he doesn't have that responsibility. And it wasn't that he didn't want to, is that that wasn't given to him. So he chose to do this. And like, we just shouldn't be judging and just be curious and have the conversation.
Correct. Yeah. And that's, I think that's, that will be what can kind of bring us back, is just as a society, just the openness to have the conversation and understand, like, tell me more. Right. Yeah. And if you're hurting, tell me more. Like, if you're hurting, probably something we should talk about. Yeah. But everybody wants to stop at the hurt when usually the healing's a little bit after that. Yeah.
That's why I love cigar lounges and cigar culture. The conversations in there.
That was a quick turn that I was not expecting. You need to tell me about I've been to a cigar bar like twice in my life, but.
So the one of the episodes I do a month is Leadership and Review, and I have 2 of my buddies in here, the guy that owns my favorite cigar lounges, and then
where are
for
those?
20 years. A tasting room just over here. It's about 8 minutes from the farm, and then he's got one over by my house that's opening up in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, so I'm going to have to make a hoof back here for a cigar.
Well, and what's interesting about that place too is they do such a good job with service and cocktails, and that I see people there on dates for the ambiance and drinks that don't even smoke cigars. But on the cigar culture, like when you walk in there, I was in there yesterday, took my friend Matt there, and all socioeconomic classes, all different races, all different religions, and you're sharing something that you enjoy. And you get into the deepest conversations and you walk out friends. So that idea for the once a month podcast I do came from the cigar lounge, going, how do these conversations happen here? And really are kind of taboo amongst everywhere else in society right now. And so we agree on things, we disagree on things, and we walk out friends. That's how society and life should be.
Yes. And the cliche, it used to be turn off your TV. Now it's probably turn off your phone, but like the world's pretty good. You just got to turn your TV off. Yeah. That still does exist. But it definitely has permeated real life where like sometimes conversations can't be had. And it's like, that's an interesting place to be in a really small scope of life that I don't wish to have. I personally will just remove myself from the situation, but it's like, that's what we're meant to do. We're emotional creatures for that reason.
We are the only living creatures with a soul. Yeah. And that speaks directly to that. Yeah. My wife and I, the first night we met, literally talked about all the things you're not supposed to talk about. Politics, religion, how many kids you want to have, all the different things.
So, again, this 2 truths thing, and I keep bringing back that there is this exercise that I learned that actually helped open my perception. So it's called disagree agreeably. Okay. And ultimately, if you're cool with it, I'll give you an example. Yeah. Give me if you're, I'm going to make up my response. I want you to give me something that you believe so staunchly, about something. And then I'm just going to reply the opposite.
We didn't go to the moon.
Josh, I appreciate your view that we didn't go to the moon. There are tons of people who have been to NASA. They've seen the videotapes. There's been interviews with Neil Armstrong. And they've actually proved that all the things and the lighting are all examples that actually exist on the moon. The government's told me this. My teachers told me this. Many leaders have told me this. Therefore, I believe we went to the moon. That was a really good one, by the way, that you came up with.
I could have given you 50. I've got a lot of strong beliefs.
The reason I wanted to share that, though, is because the strong beliefs, generally, anybody who states one, I'm going to give you one from when I was 10. What kind of truck? Do you drive a truck?
Dodge.
Dodges suck. Okay.
You know what's funny about that before you go any further? I literally, one of my clients, I drove down to Indianapolis to see him. He's like, you drive a Dodge, huh? I was like, yeah. He goes, you like Dodge better than the Ford or Chevy or GMC? I was like, honestly, I didn't grow up with trucks. So I don't have this pissing match between.
Right. Well, and so I didn't, I did that I think about being 10 and it was Dodge sucks, Ford sucks, Chevy sucks, but it was basically whatever my dad didn't drive sucked, right? As a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
But the reason is, well, if you were to just go, Adam, why do Dodges suck? 99% of the time, the people who state that fact so confidently, well, I don't like them, right? That's not a fucking answer.
Yeah.
That's lazy. But if we just took 5 seconds to reply and actually gave evidence of why we believe it and then stated our opinion, it is a lot less of a blow, right? So for you to say, we didn't go to the moon, and I asked you to do that, but had you said, hey, Adam, based on X, Y, Z, the evidence shows that we didn't go to the moon. I then could give you all the evidence that I think
that we did.
Right. And then restate, that's why I think we went to the moon. And we could sit there and have a conversation. And at the end of the day, you still think we didn't go to the moon. I still think we went to the moon, and we're still fucking friends. Yeah. Except for in today's world, it's this big, arrogant confidence brawl of, I just need to state my opinion. Whoever states it louder and fatter, whatever, that person's right. And it's like, no, that's not the point of conversation. I want to understand your optic. The thing I'll challenge you to is I think most people believe things at such I don't believe this of you just based on our conversation. Many people have these staunch beliefs based on very little factual evidence or maybe one fucking headline that they read on Facebook. Therefore, they can't give you evidence. Yeah. And that's why they get so pissed off, because they don't have anything to challenge you with. And
they're not willing to be proven wrong, which goes to the ego or arrogance. But I'm more than willing to be proven wrong, but I've also seen enough evidence that I'm open to the possibility that we did. I currently think we didn't, but willing to be proven that we did.
Did you see the movie Fly Me to the Moon?
No.
You should watch it. Being in a branding space, I love marketing. It is with Channing Tatum and I want to say Charlize Theron.
Okay.
And it's meant to be a comedy, but the whole belief of all of the things that are happening are being put into movies. It is literally a con artist. Charlize Theron's a con artist. Channing Tatum's an astronaut. And then they have to create the "We Went to the Moon" spoof. And then she has this whole marketing scheme behind it with a partnership with Omega, where they have these moon Apollo watches. And it's like, holy shit, that's totally what fucking happened. It's Fly Me to the Moon. I'm telling you, it's on Apple TV.
On it.
2 hours, I think. And afterwards, you'll be like, you still definitely don't believe we went to the moon. And you'll now know how they did it back in 1969.
Yeah. Stanley Kubrick. All right. So last piece as we wrap up here, we get to the end of your race, whether that's 20, 30, for however long you get to live at this point. We get to the end of your race. What does legacy look like to you?
Well, I will tell you that I haven't landed on it yet, because it's been something I've been thinking a lot lately, probably the last 5 years. Legacy at some point I thought was my name, but then I realized I think that is taught, meaning grandparents, great-grandparents, it's, you got to have boys and you got to have the family name. And at some point, I know when I had my first girl when I was 18, people, are you going to try for a boy? And I never had that ambition. And at some point I was like, I thought this a few years ago, if you need to have a boy to carry on your legacy, then your legacy fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting how every one of us gets asked that, especially us girl dads though?
100%. And so in the Dale Carnegie training that I did in 2019, they said, there's got to be a newspaper article about you. What's the headline? And I remember saying it, and I'm just going to kind of repeat that now. Adam Kroener, enough said. And yet to be defined, yet to be finished. But when you read my name, you'll know exactly what it means.
That's powerful. What do you want your kids to know about you?
I am the proof that people can tell you that it can't be done. How do I say this? I think we're sold the vision of the American dream while the system creates this version that says it's not really obtainable. And if I go back to you do what you're going to say and you say what you're going to do and you do what you say, you're about 99% ahead of the curve. And if you do that, there's a really good chance you can live the American dream. But I don't think enough of us are self-accountable enough to actually accomplish it.
That's also powerful. And the fact that people don't realize that true self-confidence, which leads to self-worth, which leads to self-efficacy, is actually doing what you say. Because you're keeping those promises to yourself, which is the most important.
Only person that matters. Because then as soon as you do it for yourself, it will go everywhere else in your life.
Yeah. This has been such a good conversation. I always end with this. What's an unpopular, and we've actually talked about a couple, but what's an unpopular belief you hold to be true that most others would disagree with?
I actually did a pod on this once. I'm going to go financial on this because you're a finance guy. That we are taught the American dream. I'll call it 30 years of debt, right? Many people have heard of Dave Ramsey, which, let's be honest, you can't save yourself to being a millionaire. But also, if you don't know how to manage money, like Dave teaches, you could probably never be a millionaire because you don't know how to leverage debt. I think the unpopular opinion is kind of trying to put those two together. And I'm going to use a normal $500,000 home. Most people would say if you had $550,000, you should buy that $500,000 home in cash because you'd end up paying another, $500,000 in interest. But if you do some simple math, if you took that $500,000, you'd probably get a pretty good 30-year note with knowing that you have the asset behind it. You'd buy down your rate a little bit, but then you could take the $500,000 and put it in the S&P 500, and based on 7% average returns over the last 30 years, over that same 30 years, you'd pay $500,000 in interest, but also that S&P note, if you put that $500,000 in and just let it sit and compound for 30 years, is now worth probably 1.8 million. Therefore, you've made more money. And it is I use the mortgage because it's something everybody uses and knows, but that simple concept of how to leverage debt, I think, is completely lost and unknown in the society. And I think it's a damn shame because I think that's a large part of the missing link to financial freedom.
Well, there's a reason they don't teach us about personal finance in school.
100%.
And to the Dave Ramsey point, I always told people that, because you'd have to be living under a rock not to have heard his name at this point. When it comes to savings and debt, he has good advice. When it comes to investing in insurance, turn your ears off. I mean, the biggest thing is for him, he's given broad-based advice. He's never passed an exam to do what I did. And the reason he didn't is because he'd be held liable for the advice that he gives. Someone with my previous credentials couldn't go on the airwaves and roll out that advice. Otherwise, we'd be held liable. So it doesn't mean he doesn't have some good points, but he's given broad-based advice. And when you need you want someone that knows your specific goals, your specific needs to be able to give you advice, not just take some guy's word off the airways. Well,
and to be fair about it, if you take what he teaches and do it for 2 years and you actually do it, then you have a meeting with a financial advisor and they will teach you how to compound and expand. But without the financial discipline of what he teaches, expanding will never happen because you're going to play it like a gambling machine rather than an investment machine. But once you learn the discipline, then all the other cards can fall with the financial advisor and being able to leverage it.
Yeah, that's right. So where can people follow you and drop your podcast again?
Podcast is Building Blissfully. That is currently on Spotify and YouTube, hopefully up on Apple Podcasts when they stop sucking. And then my Instagram, I think, is The Real Adam Kroener. There is only one, so it sounds fun to be just like you said. There's only one Josh Kosnick, but there's one Adam Kroener, but it's the real one.
Kroener.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for spelling that because it doesn't look that way. And then Facebook, LinkedIn is all the same. LinkedIn, I try to keep a lot more business and leadership oriented. And then I would say Instagram is probably more fun brand. as well as the fun leadership stuff. And then TikTok is total brand and fun stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Spartans, you know what to do. Share this episode far and wide. Make sure that you get this message out. Adam dropped some amazing knowledge and nuggets today. Remember, the good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.
This is Sparta!